Alright, I'm just filming this really real version of me being in a bitchy mood because I want to know what I sound like. And I think I probably sound pretty bad because I'm pissed and I'm in a bitchy mood. Now, why am I in a bitchy mood? Because I saw Joel. I didn't see Joel earlier. Joel and I do not ever look at each other. We just... I don't know if he ever sees me, but if I see him, he pulled out of that Y so fast tonight. I was like, wow. You know, and I almost understood because I would have probably acted exactly the same way. He must have been really nervous to whip out of that driveway like that. So, anyway, I was listening to this guy. It's called The Handbook of Human Ownership, a manual for new tax farmers. And it's this satire on the human race and how it has been developed historically since probably, excuse me, Jesus' time. He's funny. He's a funny guy. His name is Stefan Molyneux. He sounds British. I wonder if that sounds French. So maybe he's French and British. Who knows? Maybe his father is French and his mother is British. That's a nice combination. So this thing was driving me crazy. Listen to this voice.
Independence and print more money, thus closing the circle. That's good.
This guy is funny.
Fiat currency also allows for luxurious indulgences in social engineering. You can create wars on everything, since war is the health of the state, just as the state is the health of war. Drugs, poverty, prostitution, gambling, illiteracy, sickness, whatever. This creates more and more people dependent on state payouts and scares everyone through terrifying attacks on ordinary human vices. It also changes the kinds of people who want to become cops. But again, more on that later. Unfortunately, the relationship between increases in the money supply and inflation has been too well established and understood to be of much use anymore.
I don't have a good background.
Capital markets are always on the lookout for the overprinting of money and punish governments by increasing the price of their bonds or downgrading their credit ratings. Well, this is just another reason why we are approaching the end of the current cycle of human ownership. The second trick that governments can use to bribe those around them is to refrain from pumping money directly into the economy, but rather to create imaginary money and use it to buy their own government bonds. All this does is push the liability of the repayment of bonds, both interest and principal, into the future. It's a mere accounting trick, like just about everything else the government does, but fools more than enough people to keep the game going just a little bit longer. Democracy and bribery. Oh, but I repeat myself. Every politician must promise, say, $3 in benefits for every dollar taken in taxes. This is utterly impossible, of course, since the government has no money of its own and is ridiculously inefficient at everything it tries. So it is only through borrowing or printing money that politicians are able to bribe voters into imagining that the government produces wealth. The introduction of fiat currency and the modern banking system, protected by government-controlled cartels, as well as the legal shield called the corporation, has been a godsend to modern politicians, since it allows the costs of present-day bribery to be pushed off decades, or even generations into the future. This has been a complete no-brainer for everyone involved. Free bribe money paid for by strangers who haven't even been born yet is a temptation too lucrative.
This is all very depressing.
To even imagine resisting. Technically, democracy is a money drug addiction, that wages war on drugs far less addictive and destructive. This is the end. Do-do-do.
This guy is so funny.
Unfortunately. And you will see this as an inevitable pattern of the ruling class's use of violence. This unsustainable system is nearing the end of its current cycle. The problem is that the consequences of these inevitable national debts are producing medieval conditions once again. First of all, the economic engine of the productive classes, access to capital, is failing because governments are stealing all the capital in order to bribe voters. It's true that voters then often buy stuff, but that's not quite the same as driving new entrepreneurial development, since voters don't invest in new businesses, but rather buy products from existing businesses, which is yet another reason why existing businesses are big fans of the government. Secondly, and perhaps more importantly, the issue of livestock demotivation is raising its ugly head once more. Young people now instinctively grasp the economic catastrophes ahead, and this blunts their ambition and creativity to the point where fewer and fewer new entrepreneurs are creating wealth for the ruling classes. Birth rates. To rulers, the most fundamental capital is not money, but people. Well, more accurately, children, but we'll get to that below. Reasonably intelligent human beings don't breed well in captivity, which is why the birth rates of modern Western nations have crashed so catastrophically. Those of us in the ruling class obviously want human livestock intelligent enough to create wealth for us, but unfortunately that kind of intelligence is also easily high enough to do a rational calculation on the benefits and costs of modern parenthood. In the current system, most parents have to work outside the home in order to sustain even a middle-class existence because of enormously high taxation, regulation, inflation, debt, and economic controls.
All right.
So parents don't get to spend days with their children, but instead get them for the evenings, night times, and mornings, which are, in general, the least enjoyable times for parenting, particularly when you have to rush kids out of the house to daycare or school. Parents work a full day, get stuck on the terrible roads we built for them, stressed out because they don't want to be late picking up their kids.
We do have bad
and bring
roads.
their kids home and cook and feed and bathe them, and then try and get them to bed with precious little playtime. Mom and dad then fall into an exhausted, sexless bed, praying that their children don't wake up at night, and then have to rouse them at an artificial time, get them fed and clothed and out the door on a strict schedule, all of which is anathema to children, and then pay a significant amount of their after-tax income for strangers to take care of the children they so rarely see.
I
It
agree.
doesn't take a genius to realize that this is a pretty raw deal for parents.
Yeah.
And this is the most fundamental reason why birth rates among our taxed cattle are so low. Except among the poor, who we pay to breed so that we can use them to guilt the better off into surrendering their money to us. Thus we have
Corrupt.
demotivated young people who spend forever draining wealth, their own and others, in school and university, fewer babies and children, and a massive bulge of baby boomers heading into retirement, where a completely empty cupboard awaits them. Citizens can easily understand how impossible this all is, but they shy away from confronting it or demanding that we change it, or even admitting it, because they're all so guilty at having accepted bribes their whole life. And because parents so rarely want to admit to their kids that they have royally screwed them out of a future and sold them off to strangers for
It's
cut
so
rate
depressing, though. I
bargain
can't take it
missions.
anymore.
These aging citizens need the next generation to pay for their own retirement.
Oh, it's so
But we're leaving
depressing.
them with
It's
a
true.
traitor
If you want to
economy,
finish this,
growing state power, and massive
it's called
national debts.
The Handbook of Human
And so to
Ownership,
admit
a manual
guilt
for
would mean
new tax
that any
farmers.
reasonable
Stefan Molyneux. You can subscribe. It's in French. So, all right, because I know he's right. It's so true. I'm realizing it. I see how trapped we are in this really bullshit society. And we are just following these just what this guy describes, these constructed situations, systems to keep us under control and feeling bad about ourselves so that we follow along and we don't think for ourselves and we don't figure it out, because the minds that are behind all of these religious and political systems are very bright, and they spend all their time trying to figure out how to control the human being and our societies, and they play all these games. They make up games and then they play them. And you know, and this guy is describing all the different ways that whoever is making up the game is that the game that they're making up, and how it's enslaved the human race in so many ways. It's really interesting, and how they've kept everybody down, even to go so far as to shut down part of our brain, literally 90%. Does anybody ever question why they say that we only use 10% of our brains? 90% is shut down. 90%. Most of it. And no one wonders why? It's because 90% of our brain is shut down. That's why we don't wonder why. We're too busy just not thinking with only 10% of our brains. All we can do to get through the day. God, we have been so fucked. We are very easily hoodwinked, people. We are tricked and we are hoodwinked, as that woman says on that video. We are easy to delude. Somebody makes us feel guilty, and we will fall into any mental or psychological trap set up before us, or that we even put onto ourselves. Bring guilt in, and you will pretty much follow any stupid idea that falls in your path, because you have no control over your own strength, because when you're guilty, you just are not in control. And the religions create guilt, and the politics even do, and it's a pretty intense, vast system, you know. I don't know how we're all supposed to break out of it, but maybe it's enough people breaking out of it to just shift it out of this construct, because these constructs, the social constructs, are not fun to live with. All the taxes, the money game, all of that stuff. This has got to change and shift. So, okay, here's my little ranty-roo for the evening, or right this moment. So, thanks for watching. Bon nuit. Love you guys. Je t'aime. Isn't that how you say I love you in French? Or is it a little different than that? Anyway, correct me if I'm wrong. Big kiss.